because we have forgotten we belong to each other. One love, one heart, one destiny. We are one humanity. Be the reason someone smiles today. Be the reason someone feels loved. And believe in the goodness in people. We're all equal because we are different. We are one humanity. We are one humanity. One God, many faces. One family, many races. One truth, many traces. One humanity. One heart, many graces. One life, many places. One world, many spaces. One humanity. We are one humanity. We are one humanity. We are one humanity. We are one.
Yes, I drove 18 hours to get here. Yes. I was coming through Nevada, and my GPS went out on me. And I wound up in Death Valley. I stopped at a gas station when I found a town, and I said, "Do people often stop here and ask you, where the hell am I?" He laughed. He said, "Yeah, actually." But it is good to be here. And I do feel like a little bit of a zombie because up early in the morning, being ready for today. So I want to welcome all the light workers, all the healers, the body, mind, and spirit healers, all of the work that you've been doing on yourself, clearing and cleansing and purging, is paying off. It may not seem like it, but trust me, it's working. We are a spiritual healing center, a center of universal light, and we are here to support you in your path, whatever path you have chosen. We are open to all religions, all spiritual paths, as long as what you do is done in love and respect for others. We ask that you leave your preconceived notions at the door. Your expectations. Boy, I had a big lesson in that this week. Leave your beliefs at the door. When you come through the curtains, come in fresh, come in open. Come in like a child, ready to discover, curious. What might you hear today that could change your life? That you could take home with you, that you could live with the rest of your life? It's very possible that that could happen for you today. And then if you want your baggage, go ahead and pick it up on the way out.
When the Spirit comes, we don't ever ask questions. If I don't understand, I just hold on to it. Then later down the road, maybe in a couple of years, I understand what that Spirit meant. And that was from Wallace Black Elk of the Lakota tribe. At certain spiritual events or happenings, it is possible for the spirits to come. Sometimes these spirits look like sparklers of light. Sometimes you can feel them. Sometimes they look like live human beings. The spirits also come for a reason. When we deal with the spirit world, we need to be patient. The Great Spirit tells us the meaning of these happenings when he is ready. And the prayer is, Great Spirit, let me be aware of your presence. Aho.
Aho. 10 million stars. Inside each raindrop swims the stars. Inside each flower breathes the moon. Inside me dwell 10 million stars, one for each of my ancestors. The elk, the raven, the mouse, the man, the flower, the coyote, the lion, the fish. 10 million different stars am I, but only one spirit connecting all.
Oh.
From Spirit Walker, poems by Nancy Wood.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. And thank you, Gail, for bringing these to us.
Good morning. Emergence. Before we came out of the lake, we did not know illness. Before we came out of the lake, we did not know death. Before we came out of the lake, we did not know evil. We needed our emergence to accept them. From Spirit Walker, poems by Nancy Wood.
So I've just returned from a weekend in California with shamanic practitioners who have studied and worked and met Don Oscar Quiro Quesada, who brought the Pachacuti Mesa shamanic tradition to the United States from Peru. It's a hybrid of two different shamanic traditions, the South and the Northern Coast. So this gathering was of really a people of high integrity that have been doing this for a long time. They call it the Kuntisuyu Council, which is the Western states. And although there must be 24 or more practitioners of the Pachacuti Mesa here in Arizona, I was the only one. I represented them all. There is no coincidence. Thursday night, when we opened our circle and called in the directions for our Central Mesa, we then had the opportunity to go around the circle and everybody kind of do a check-in, say their name, say where they're from, and say what medicine they're bringing to the circle. When it became my turn, I stood up, told them my name and what other names I'm known as among Native culture. And then all of a sudden the words, I am the embodiment of the eagle and condor medicine. That came out of my mouth. I said, oh, okay. There are no coincidences. And then they said, well, what medicine do you bring to the circle? And I said, spiritual discernment. That was the message Nanda brought 2 weeks ago. We had a little bit of a discussion about what spiritual discernment was, but that was my gift. That was my medicine I brought to the circle. Friday, the next day, it was early in the morning, just before I woke up, I had a dream, a disturbing dream. But it's important, and I want to tell you about this dream, because I'm in a theater with many, many rows of seats, all filled with people, no empty seats. Suddenly, in the middle of the audience, a man stands up and begins to shout as if he's in a trance. And then he sits down as quickly as he stood up, and a woman up front stands up. And she is doing the same thing. It's like she's hypnotizing or speaking from a higher dimension. And she is channeling a warning. But the audience thinks this is part of the entertainment that they've been waiting for. So they start laughing and applauding her, you know. She sits down. I noticed that all the elders have been seated way in the back. ones in wheelchairs and walkers and things like that. They're all in the back, out of the way, It's as if they were purposely put there. So I go back there to check on them, see how they're doing. And a friend of mine is working there as a utility repairman, a maintenance man. And he's fixing something, and when he gets done, he says, okay, I'm going to go down in my apartment and go to bed. When he leaves, I hear this roaring sound coming from another part of the basement. I go over to the top of the steps of the utility room, and I hear this roaring sound coming out there. So I go down the steps, and I see this culvert, this pipe, about this big around, just flooding water out. It's as much as it can. And it's going all over the floor, and it's filling up the basement. So I rush up the stairs to find the manager / owner, whoever it is, and I find him, and he's wearing a nice shark skin suit with a red tie. And it's Trump. I've never dreamed about Trump before, but it's Trump. I tell him that there's a major flooding going on in the utility room. He's got to evacuate the building. He just says, walks off, and does nothing. So then I rush down to the basement of the other side where my friend is sleeping, and I try the doorknob, and it's unlocked, so I go in. He's sleeping on a bed with the TV on. He's asleep with the TV on. Very symbolic. So I jump on the bed to wake him up, and he says, how'd you get in? I said, well, the door wasn't locked, but I got to warn you, there's water pouring into the utility room. It's flooding, major flooding is going on. He says, well, what do you want me to do about it? I was shocked, I was stunned. And as I left, I saw his wife and 2 young grandchildren sleeping on the floor. Raced up to the top of the steps just to see the water now pouring out of the utility room over the main floor into the seats. And I start shouting that, stop the show. We've got to get people out of here, we're flooding. The people are mad that the show stops, then they have to leave. They're grumbling, they're shuffling out, nobody's too worried about anything, and it goes down over the seats, the water, into the pit with all the electronics, and up and over the stage. It's a major flood. And then it occurs to me that my friend and his family never made it out of the basement. Just then I woke up with a full bladder, and I thought I was going to flood my sleeping bag. So I got up immediately. But the dream was that vivid. It lingered, it stayed with me, and it bothered me. And I didn't, what does this mean? What does this mean? Is it a warning for me? Is it a warning for my friend? Or is it a message for the collective? All through breakfast, I carried this heaviness with me, this sadness. My first workshop that day was to attend a singing bowl chakra workshop, and let's see, what's her name? Crystal Bowl Sound Healing with Reverend Anna Maria Lopez from Fresno, California. She had all of the bowls up the chakras with the color and the frequency of the chakra all lined up. And she stood behind them, and we laid on the floor on our mats and stuff. And just before she began, she said, now, if you have a question, ask it now. So I said, okay, what does this dream mean? She starts in on these bowls, and within a minute or 2 at the most, I had the answer, clear as day. The answer is that it was a collective dream, and it was a warning to humanity. We've heard of the oceans rising. I mean, the ice is melting, the ocean's rising. This was a dream about that, and about a mass migration of people. So, there are no coincidences. And that healing bowl thing was amazing. I'm bringing her to CUL because I popped out of my body. Into my astral body. I floated up to the ceiling. I just couldn't keep my mind from thinking. And that would bring me back into the body. That same night, I was to give a concert of my animal totems music to the group. There was only about 35 of us there. And I set up all my gear, and I was ready to play, and, you know, in my performance attire. But they had brought in a girl who played and sang guitar, a singer-songwriter, to open for me. And I didn't really know her, didn't know what she's like. Beautiful gal. The only man on the council had invited her. I think he was kind of enamored with her. And so she sat down. I got the mic for her and everything. Got her plugged into the PA, and she sat down and sang and played the guitar. She was very accomplished on the guitar, and her vocals were great, and her message was really good. But every song was the same. Same tempo, same emotional mood. And it started to annoy me. And what made it worse was she told the audience not to applaud after she was done with the song. So there was this pregnant pause after every song, and you know people were waiting, wanting, they were holding their hands back, you know. And this would have been okay if it had been 20 minutes. Okay, 30. But an hour and a half? Our music was like day and night. So different. She's, you know, picking and singing. And of course, the audience was mainly women's, and she was playing to them, and they loved her. But here I am coming from the Nashville School of Songwriting and Performance Technique, and she's my antithesis. She's everything the opposite. So when I finally got to play, I got up and I said a couple of things that were kind of snarky. Well, one of them was, wow, you guys must be really mellowed out. And I said, unlike the last performance, I do like applause after the song. And they all burst into applause, of course. But so I'm into my set now. This is not feeling good. This is not feeling right. Everything seems automatic. I'm like a robot here. I'm saying and playing everything. There's no heart. There's nothing here. And I started thinking, oh, man, must be those comments I made. I thought to myself, well, if Kimberly was here, I'd get her elbow. And she would have said, that was kind of snarky. So, okay, I stopped the whole concert. I stopped myself. And I apologized publicly to her. Because I didn't want to go the rest of the weekend looking over my shoulder. So I apologized to her, and she took it very graciously. I'm sure she maybe didn't even pick up on it. You know, it wasn't about her. It was about me and how I felt. So I wanted to be impeccable that weekend. And that was not impeccable. So I remedied that. Saturday night was a big fire ceremony. And we each got to go to the fire while the music was playing and drumming and, drumming. Those women were awesome. And then put something into the fire symbolizing what we were letting go of, what we were surrendering. I may not have given that enough thought. So I got up to the fire pit and I said, I want to surrender my need to save the world. And, but actually, you know, that isn't as slight as it sounds. Because we can get worked up thinking that we need to save the world. Nobody else is doing it. We need to do it. We get our cape. But that becomes just an obsession. And we don't have any control over that anyway. All we can control is saving ourselves. So But by that time, we started about 7. It was 11 o'clock before we all got through the circle, and it was cold, and we were sitting on logs, and I was sicker than a dog. My lunch had not digested well. And that gave me a raging headache. So at 11 o'clock here, and it's cold, and I'm dead tired. The Sami brothers are performing, and they called me and asked me if I would play the violin on their last song. What am I going to say? I would love to bring the Sami brothers here too. You would love them. And so I got the violin out and played the song I'd never heard before and gave it the big concert ending. It was perfect. And they loved it. I learned on Saturday that there was a woman attending this conference, I guess, this gathering, who was an experienced reader of the Akashic Record, having done thousands of them, and had an extraordinary childhood, which I won't go into, but so I contacted her and I asked her if she would be willing to give me an Akashic reading while we were there, if there was time available. And so I gave her some CDs, picture, brochure. We made a trade. And I would like to share some of this reading with you because Sunday, after nearly everybody was gone and the tents were, I was tent camping, thanks to Kalia. I was tent camping, and after everybody's tent was, torn down and packed up and their cars were ready, she and I went out into the woods, into a grove of trees. Beautiful, tall, flat cedar trees. We sat on the ground. And my reader's name was Monica O'Rourke Bravo. She asked for permission of the Lords of the Akashic Records to be able to listen to the records and remove whatever information was allowed. I told her that the most important thing to me in this reading was to know my life chart, was to know what I agreed to do when I came here. What kind of contract had I made for this lifetime? And what was the best use of my energy now to complete my life chart, if possible, in this lifetime? Which was the agreement that I made when I came into physical. This curiosity has been with me for a long time, and it just recently rose to the surface, and so there are no coincidences. She then spoke the question to give it vibration and raise the question, the meaning of the question, to create it. Monica, I'm going to share with you what I saw when I was opening the records. I didn't see a bird. I was the bird. I was trying to get clear on whether it was an eagle or a condor. It seemed that it was shape-shifting between both. I couldn't see the head because I was the eagle flying. I was that bird. I didn't see the bird because I was the bird. It was very large and very dark feathers. I would say, oh, it's an eagle. Oh, no, it's a condor. Oh, no, it's an eagle. Is it a condor? Going back and forth. And at that point I said, Thursday night, I said, I embody the medicine of the condor and the eagle. She says, oh, I wasn't there. She then said that there was a river below her that she could see very clearly, even though she was so high up. It seemed very small, like a creek, but the bird had very sharp vision and said that this river looked like a snake. And just then the water in this river jumped up and said, I'm the Snake River. Wow. There is a Snake River, we all know that, and the double meaning of this is a snake of water flowing through this wide expanse. She didn't even know how high she was, but she said it was a very expansive space. She said, then I heard the word oversight. So then she asked me, what thoughts come to you? What questions does this raise? I said, first of all, I'm in the air. The air element indicates that I'm in the fifth dimension. I may be already there, but I doubt it right now. But that's where I'm going. The third dimension in Pisces was the earth element, and the fifth dimension in Aquarius is the air element. And we're all making this transition as a collective into the fifth dimension. She said, I was very high up in the air, and the water, no, I was saying this, I'm high up in the air, and the water, the snake, is the great healer. Water is emotion, and emotion is the medicine that I carry as a healer. But the oversight indicates that I'm overseeing people or the planet or the realm, the kingdom, whatever it is, and I'm overseeing that, Monica says. I did get the thought when I heard oversight that there was some leadership role. There's an eldership. There's an eldership role. I said, now when I say eagle and condor, I always think of the marriage between the North and the South Americas. I said in the opening night that I embodied that medicine, but she said, I didn't hear that, but you clearly do. I mean, I saw it. But as soon as I said eldership, I was suddenly on the eagle condor's back, riding, and he very definitely a masculine energy, turned and looked at me, didn't smile, but gave me an acknowledgement of truth, like, yeah, that was it. I said, well, what am I supposed to do with eagle condor medicine? What, is that in my chart? Monica says, you've done good work. You are blessed to fly so high, very, very free. Very few can fly with humility as high as you can and as far as you can. And I see that eagle condor shape-shifting as it traverses up and down the continents, going up and down. You're so high that people are coming. And then I saw Don Oscar. This is Monica, the man I spoke of earlier. He came and was flying with you. You're flying together. And he calls you brother, and he says, good work, brother. I'm glad we're working together. I almost saw you having a similar purpose, she says, similar vision. The words that came are of bringing together the tribes. The call of bringing together the tribes. What am I, Tecumseh? Bringing together the tribes? I don't know how that's going to work out. But I don't know, I don't have to know. She said, went on to say, I saw these filaments coming together as you would fly over the land. These filaments from the land there were really coming up to you as much. They weren't coming up to you as much as they were coming up towards you, and then connected in here. It was a feeling of almost like a spider, how it glistens. It was very crystalline. It was a crystalline web being created. I said, that's the fifth dimension. Mm-hmm. Monica. But they want to be very clear, this is not they give me an animal. You are not a wolf. You're not a wolf on the ground collecting the pack. You are oversight. You're above in your existence. And I'm hearing music and I'm seeing performances as part of this. But it's that same sense of working in the fifth dimension. By working above and existing there and doing there, whatever that is that you're supposed to be doing there, and that is drawing together and creating connections. I said, and music is the key. Monica, it's very clear that you are flying above and the next layer below is music. The music is what's doing the work. The music itself, the vibration of the music. Then the snake came back. The vibration of the music are what are seen as filaments. And as soon as I said that, the snake came right back up again and wanted you to know, to honor the work you've done thus far on your personal journey and your personal path. And the work you've done with emotions, because that now is the source. the fountain. That is why it keeps jumping up. Yes, the river is the source of the music or the path that you've walked so far and what you've learned of emotion. The snake is connected to Pachamama, to the earth. It's a healing totem. It represents the third dimension. The Snake River is the source of the fountain that you're playing this music from. You're way up in the air. This river is representing your actual human experience that you've had in this lifetime. And that's the resource that you're drawing this music from, creating these filaments. I said, what are filaments? I'm thinking, okay, these filaments must be individual songs or compositions. Monica, the crystalline web, the pure crystalline web. There's no color. It's all coming from your heart. I saw the river running through your heart space. I can see the river running through your heart. Then she says, now what we lovingly call the MTLOs, or the masters, teachers, and loved ones are not telling me they're done talking. They're done. They're done sharing in this message. But they didn't leave. She said, even your MTLOs are almost stately. They're mirroring your eldership tradition. They are very respectful. They're showing you a great honor. She then says 12. There are 12 tribal elders from various tribes in the Americas, and some of them choose to wear their own traditional dress. They're not going to be able to tell me their names because they're from groups I'm not familiar with, but I did hear Lakota Sioux, as well as others from the high Andes, and there's another beautiful brother who's from the Amazon basin. There's someone in a war bonnet headdress. There's someone that looks like maybe Chinook. She goes on to say that I've been in a lot of records. I've met a lot of MTLOs. I never met such an honored group. The word mantle comes to me, she said. They have placed over you a mantle. They placed a mantle on me, I said. What? Then I asked the question, what is it made of? There was a long pause. Then Monica says, they want you to know that you're even more chosen because of your question. Because you were wise enough to ask, what is it made of? They're saying everyone else would have wanted to know what it looks like. But you wanted to know what its true nature is. They started fashioning animals, and it's woven together with sacred hairs, hides, wool, and sinew from all the sacred animals of their tribes. It's a tapestry of animals. She says, now it's shifting. They're all gathered around behind you. They all came around, and it's just big. You wear it well, my brother. You're very honored, and they have given you a great charge that you are fulfilling beautifully. Wow. Those are some big moccasins to step into. But I encourage each and every one of you to know what's in your Akashic records. Many of us here in this room, what do they call this? A culmination lifetime. This could be our last lifetime if we get our shit together. But you know, I don't know. I kind of like Earth. It's so beautiful in so many ways. But who knows? I call this my playground. I tell you this, there is no coincidence, and nothing happens by accident. Each event and adventure is called to yourself. You call it to you by yourself in order that you might create and experience who you really are. Wow, think about that. So I call this to me so I could experience who I am. Lordy, lordy. All true masters know this. We are masters on the fourth dimensional bridge. That is why mystic masters remain unperturbed even by the most horrific things in life. The great teachers of the world's religions understand this. They know that Jesus was not disturbed by the crucifixion, but expected it. He could have walked away at any time, but he did not. He could have stopped the whole process at any point. He had that power. Yet he did not. He allowed himself to be crucified in order that he might stand in humanity as humanity's example of eternal salvation. Now, what does eternal salvation really mean? It means that there's another level of existence that we must come to realize so that we may enter it and really live. It is the ascended realm of consciousness and experience. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven. It is the consciousness and experience of self-mastery and self-control that comes through a full realization that oneness is the spirit of the divine essence within you. Once we realize this great mystical truth, we come to understand that there is no death. So Jesus was saying things like, look at what I can do. Look at what's true. And know that these things and more ye shall also do. For have I not said ye are gods? From Psalm 82:6. Yet you do not believe. If you cannot believe in yourself, then at least believe in me. Do you get it now? For me, the greatest gift that Jesus brought to the world was the idea that compassion was not a weakness, it was a virtue. It was a strength. His impact on the world was that all might come into self-realization. The realization of our own divinity. Self-realization. If in no other way, then through him. He's just being your brother. So remember this when your Christian friends say, Jesus is the way. It is the way for them because they have not yet come to the self-realization where they can believe in themselves as the center of universal light. The greatest teaching of Jesus the Christ was not that you will have everlasting life, but that you already do. Yes. Not that you will have oneness in God, but that you already are. Not that you will have whatever you request, but that you already do. All that is required is to know this. For you are the creator of your own reality. Life can show up in no other way than the way in which you think it will. You get that, don't you? You think it into being. This is the first step of creation. It has been said that God the Father is thought. The thought is the parent that gives birth to all things. This is one of the laws that we are to remember. A thought is the parent that gives birth to all things. Remember that. Our teachers, the holiest among us, we have killed throughout history. Because they stood against every thought that we had that would deny the truth. And deny the truth we did in order to deny ourselves. Now, why would we do that? Because we were afraid. And because the promises of the truth seemed too good to be true, and because we could not accept the greatest truth. So we reduced ourselves to a spirituality that teaches fear and dependence and tolerance rather than love, power, and acceptance. Humanity is filled with fear. And our biggest fear is that the biggest promise might be life's biggest lie. The promise that we are indeed the same as God. That's the promise. So we created the bigger fantasy in order to defend ourselves against this. We claim that any promise that gives us the power and guarantees us the love of God must be the false promise of the devil. Remember him? God would never make such a promise, would he? Only the devil would tempt us to deny our true identity. So we created God in our own image and gave him the characteristics of the fearsome, judgmental, jealous, vengeful, punishing entity of entities. Really characteristics that should more like go to the devil, right? If there was one. We have assigned devilish characteristics to God in order to convince ourselves not to accept the God-like promises of our Creator, like our God-like qualities of ourself. Such is the power of fear. Can we ever change that? Wow. The first law is that you can be, do, and have whatever you can imagine. The second law is that you attract whatever you fear. Why is that? Emotion is the power which attracts. That which you fear strongly, you will experience. An animal knows immediately if you're afraid of it. A plant responds to people who love them far better than to someone who could care less. None of this is by coincidence. There is no coincidence in the universe, only a grand design. Emotion is energy in motion. When you move energy, you create effect. If you move enough energy, you create matter. Matter is energy conglomerated. If you manipulate energy long enough in a certain way, you get matter. Every master understands this law. It's the alchemy of the universe. It's the secret of life. Thought is pure energy. Every thought you've ever had or ever will have is creative. All thoughts congeal, they meet other thoughts, they crisscross in an incredible maze of energy, forming an ever-changing pattern of unspeakable beauty and unbelievable complexity. Like energy attracts like energy, forming clumps of energy of like kind. When enough similar clumps crisscross each other, run into each other, they stick to each other. It takes an incomprehensibly huge amount of energy sticking together to form matter. But matter will form out of pure energy. In fact, that is the only way that it can form. Once energy becomes matter, it remains matter for a very, very long time, unless its construction is disrupted by an opposing or dissimilar form of energy. This dissimilar form of energy acting upon matter actually dismembers the matter, releasing the raw energy of which it was composed. This is the elementary terms of theory behind our atom bomb. Einstein came closer to, in theory, in terms of what was behind. Now, he said he came closer than anyone else to discovering, explaining, and functionalizing the creative secret of the universe. Now you can understand how people of like mind can work together to create a favorable reality. That's us. We're creating a favorable reality. The phrase, wherever two or more are gathered, does have great meaning. Of course, when entire societies think a certain way, then things, very often astonishing things happen. Not all of them desirable. For instance, if a society living in fear actually inevitably produces in form that which it fears most. Communities like ours here at CUL often find miracle-producing power with combined thinking in what some people often call common prayer. Incidentally, prayer is the topic of next week's message. And it's interesting, I discovered that the subject of prayer is as emotionally charged as if we were talking about politics. Who knew? But if thought, prayer, wish, hope, dream, or fear, whatever you want to call it, if it's amazingly strong enough, it can produce results. Jesus did it regularly. I'm not going to go on with that. Fear will follow you like a plague. Fear will draw it to you like a magnet. So, fear attracts like energy, but they say love is all there is. Now, how can that be? If fear attracts like energy, love is the ultimate reality. It's the only reality, the all. The feeling of love in your experience is your experience of divine essence in highest truth. Love is all there is. When you move into the absolute, you move into love. The energy between the atoms has been termed love. So we exist in love. The realm of the, they call it the realm of the relative, which is here on earth, was created in order that we might experience ourselves. Yeah, let's see. Fear is the opposite of love. It is the primal polarity. In creating the realm of the relative, God first created the opposite of itself. Now, in the realm in which we live on the physical plane, there are only two places of being, and one is fear and one is love. Thoughts rooted in fear will produce one kind of manifestation on the physical plane, and thoughts rooted in love will produce another. The masters who walk the planet are those who discovered the secret of the relative world and refuse to acknowledge its reality. In short, these masters are those who have chosen only love in every instance, in every moment, in every circumstance. Even as they were being killed, they loved their murderers. Even as they were being persecuted, they loved their oppressors. I know that seems difficult to understand, much less emulate. Nevertheless, this is what every master has ever done. Doesn't matter what philosophy, religion, or tradition they come through, every master has done this. This example and this lesson is laid out very clearly for us time and time again, over and over again. It's been shown to us through the ages in every place, through all your lifetimes, through every moment. The truth has been echoed. Love is the answer. Yet have we listened?
No.
We have heard this in countless times and in countless ways. Do you think the source of all creation doesn't know what it's doing? Take this home. There are no coincidences in the universe. Believe it. In light and love for self, the community, and planet Earth, I'm Reverend Arvel Bird, co-founder of the Center of Universal Light in Cottonwood, Arizona.
One family, many races, one truth, many traces, one humanity. One light, many places. One world, many spaces. One